Hey everyone, welcome back to Glass Ratner's Business Interruption webinar series. So one of the things that we've seen of late really pertains to an issue that crops up from time to time in a lot of natural disaster claims. And that is the idea of concurrent causation. And what that really means is that a business may be impacted from more than one occurrence. So you hear the old adage, when it rains, it pours. And that seems to be a little bit what's going on right now with businesses that are suffering some financial difficulties as a result of COVID, but may also be impacted by, say, civil unrest and looting and some of the riots. So let's examine that a little bit. So in a normal situation, you don't necessarily see a lot of events that were driven by multiple losses. But in this case, it's a whole lot of stuff kind of packaged and bundled into one issue. Typically, you'd see it in a natural disaster context where you may have a separate flood policy outside of the normal business owner policy. So, where a business may have some financial difficulties, a lot of times what an accountant is really looking to do is just to quantify the total amount of damages and then see what the data tells us in terms of what we're really driving those damages. Was it, say, for instance, a flood versus wind-driven rain? Or going back to earlier in my career, we did a lot with multiple hurricanes. So being in Florida in 2004, 2005, we were commonly asked to identify whether damages may really be related to, say, Hurricane Francis or Jeanne. So those are some names that are burned into my memory forever, and we've dealt with that a lot, where you're really trying to identify whether the financial damages are related to one event versus another, or one cause versus another. It's something that's popping up now because you have a lot of businesses that are sustaining financial damages as it related to COVID, but that compounded by those financial damages would be the fact that there may be some civil unrest and some looting, or some of the riots kind of keeping some of the keeping some patrons away. And so we see it a lot, and then it's really data driven, because you really need to understand what the sources of the data are, and then what's the best way in order to identify what the financial damages are related to, specific to a cause of loss or one sort of event or another. So, and that's part of the exercise that's going on now. There's a lot of macro data that we're trying to get our arms around, and we'll talk a little bit more about that next week. But then, in addition to that, we're looking specifically at what records a business owner may have that may be able to point us to one direction or another as to whether that some sort of financial damages are related to, is it COVID driven, is it some other causation. And so that's part of the exercise going on now. So it's interesting. I think next week, and it really kind of dovetails a little bit more into what we were talking about earlier, about a month ago, which is the market loss issue. So really just trying to identify, whether some sort of financial damages are going and they're specifically related to the economic impact of COVID, or whether it's specific to the insured premises. So we're going to talk a little bit about that next week, a little bit more in detail, but I think that's really helpful to understand in the grand what's going on in the marketplace right now. So until next week, thanks for joining us for another edition of Glass Ratner's Business Interruption webinar series. Bye.